Today at the Detroit Auto Show, Chevy brought along their all-new mid-size truck. This is the new Chevy Colorado. The Colorado has been on sale for in the US for a while, but the model that we had been getting up till now was actually a little older than people thought because it was on sale in other world markets for a while. This is all new and definitely very distinctive. This is the new ZR2 trim. You see we have this very aggressive brush bumper right up front. You can see some of the new features right there behind it. This black grille section right here. We have the angry headlights up front, LEDs of course. These are not actually functional sections here. A lot of styling going on, lots of cooling going on up front. Even this ZR2 has well-integrated LED fog lights up front. Now let's take a look around the side. You can see definitely the changes for the ZR2 here. We have this plastic section right up here on the hood, definitely making it more aggressive looking, and lots of different angles going on here. They've tried to differentiate the Colorado and the Canyon a bit more from one another in this generation. So this has more angular sheet metal, a few more creases here. Then obviously, since this is the ZR2, we get these large plastic fender flares, bigger all-terrain tires right there. These are beadlock capable, although they're not beadlocked right from the factory. We then have rock rails right down there as well. Above the rock rails, we find 4 doors, and you're only going to be able to get the Colorado and the Canyon in one format exactly as you see it here. Obviously, with and without the ZR2 badging and the ZR2 accessories, like these big braces right back here. Again, fender flares in the rear, all-terrain tires, and then upgraded suspension, upgraded shocks as well. These have the new Multimatic DSSV shocks that we also find in the off-road capable versions of the larger pickup trucks from General Motors. Moving around towards the rear, we do find surprisingly incandescent taillight modules. I had expected to find LEDs here, but we don't find those. I also had kind of hoped that we'd get a miniaturized version of the Multi-Pro tailgate that we find in the Silverado and in the Sierra, but we don't find that on here. Instead, we just have a pretty typical tailgate here. Moving on into the bed, you can see that it's a little bit differently arranged than the current generation Colorado and Canyon. Most notably, back here at the front of the bed, you can see that the wheel wells are there, and then it forms up the side. So a little bit different in terms of the box shape than before. Below that, we have 4-pin and 7-pin wiring harness connections, hitch receiver right there, and we still have metal bumpers front and rear. The really big change for this generation Colorado happens under the hood because we find the same 2.7-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that we find in GM's larger pickup trucks, the Sierra and of course the Silverado. This 2.7-liter 4-cylinder turbo is going to be found in every single trim of Colorado, but the horsepower is going to change and the torque is going to change based on the version you get. It's going to start out with 237 horsepower. The top-end version is going to have a whopping 310 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. That torque figure is probably the most impressive thing about this new turbocharged engine, and the thing that I did not expect, because that's basically the same torque level that we find in GM's full-size pickup truck line, and of course this is going to be much smaller. So expect this to be sort of the performance mid-size truck in America right now. They've also decided to mate this with their 8-speed automatic transmission. That I'm also a little surprised by because I had hoped that this would get GM's excellent 10-speed automatic. Unfortunately, in all vehicles that this engine is paired with at the moment, for the truck lineup, we see it only paired with the 8-speed. Not entirely clear why that is. It could be that production of the 10-speed is not sufficient at this point in time, but I would have loved to have seen this paired with the 10-speed. Worth noting that when you get a version of this engine in a Cadillac, it does get the 10-speed, so it's simply the truck lineup that does not. Obviously, this is rear-wheel drive by default. You can get 4-wheel drive, and you can get the upgraded 4-wheel drive system in this ZR2 model, which has a front locker in addition to the rear locker. This is going to be one of the very few vehicles that has 2 lockers. The biggest change for the Colorado and Canyon happens on the inside, where we find an all-new interior. We also find new seats. This model has powered seats right here. We also have power adjustable lumbar, but it's just 2-way lumbar in this particular model. Size-wise, the back seats are about the same size as before, so if you want more legroom, you're going to have to go full size. Remember, this cabin is also narrower than a Silverado or a Sierra. But we do have air vents back here, cup holders for the rear passengers right there in that center console area, and then we have a fold-down center armrest with extra cup holders there as well. On the inside of the Colorado, we see some pretty major changes, including the latest infotainment system from Chevy. This is pretty similar to what we find in the new electric Hummer as well, only obviously restyled a bit for this vehicle and on a smaller screen. So the screen spans from about here to about over there in the vehicle. You can see that there are a ton of new functions here. Off-road screens, we have some trailering screens here as well. It's a little bit unclear as to how much of the trailering technology that we find in the larger pickup trucks in the Chevy lineup are going to make their way over here to the Colorado. But the rest of the dashboard is also significantly redesigned with much more premium materials than we had before, and definitely more premium materials than we find in the current generation competition from Toyota or Nissan. Soft touch stitched components of the dashboard here. There's this interesting sort of camo texture going on right there in the middle of that in the ZR2. They're logically going to be different textures based on the trim level that you select, and obviously there are different colors available as well. We have hard plastics up at the top of the dashboard and down here at the bottom of the dashboard to help improve durability, just as you'd expect. Moving over to the front doors, they're pretty simply styled. Lots of soft touch materials again going on in the middle of the door panel, harder plastics down below. These seats are heated only in this particular trim, but they've got styling very similar to the more off-road versions of the Silverado. Perforations right there in the middle of that seat back. Moving back over to the center console, you can see the controls for that climate control and infotainment system down here, dual zone controls right there. Here we have the controls for the lockers, again, rear locker, front locker there, auto start, stop system, lane keeping, etc. There is one auxiliary switch, which is a nice touch. USB inputs down there, Qi wireless charging mat. There's a rotary control for the four-wheel drive system and a pretty typical console shifter right there. This is the manual mode button over here on the side of that. There's an electric parking brake, two pretty decently sized cup holders, and then a center armrest. It's not overly large, but remember this is a lot narrower than the average half-ton truck. On the driver's side, we have a pretty large binnacle. In this model, we find a color LCD instrument cluster over here. Unfortunately, the vehicle is not on, so I can't show that to you. We have a new steering wheel design. There's still buttons on the back of the steering wheel, so track up, down, and volume up, down are still on the back. Then on the face of the steering wheel, we have controls for the cruise control over here, and then some infotainment and controls for that LCD instrument cluster over there. New turn signal stock in here. We are starting to see some new switchgear from GM, and this is one of the new switchgear devices that we're seeing here, this new turn signal stock with a button there at the end. It's the only stock that steering column has, and then the engine start stop button, it's right over there on that side. If you want to get your hands on the new Colorado or the new Canyon, these are going to be starting production in early 2023, so you should head down to your Chevy or your GMC dealer right now. Another cool touch, we do have the Chevy flow tie right there in the front bumper if that's something that you're interested in your next compact pickup truck. It is a cute design, and I like that it's red on the inside to really highlight the fact that Chevy logo is open. I hope they do that on more and more products because it really is a distinctive touch. At any rate, we don't know all the details just yet, but we do know that all models are going to get the new 2.7-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine in a variety of different power levels. No diesel engine on offer, no V6 engine on offer, no naturally aspirated 4-cylinder either. So power levels are absolutely the best in this tiny segment. That was really surprising because I had expected GMC to offer at least a base engine in theirs, if not in the Chevy version of the same truck, and both brands instead are going to be offering only the 2.7-liter turbo. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down there at the bottom of your screen and check out all the rest of our coverage from the Detroit show. I'll see all of you later.